When I was in my early 20s, I used to play with big old lifted mud trucks. Now, in my late 40s, coming into my early 50s, we're playing with lifted three-wheelers. Same problems though. They break. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how you build them, they're going to continuously break. You push them to the extremes and the weakest links will shear and break. Tony got a hold of me. He said he heard a clunk clunk. He was out playing in the mud. Tried making it back to the truck. The clunks got better. These things only go clunk so many times before the clunk turns into a pop and you get one pop. Brought it back over to the house. By the time I come outside here, he had the rear end out of this thing. So, figured we'd blow it apart and see what he broke. He was thinking he snapped a drive shaft or something. Nope, drive shaft was in great shape. But that pinion gear was pretty smooth. I was not expecting the pinion gear out of all gears to go bad. I was expecting him to shear off some teeth on the ring gear. So we're going through the rest of the rear end to see what all has happened since we put it together. He's been taking this thing out into the mud holes. There's a lot of fish and twine and grass and everything around where he's playing. He does not have the wheel paddles like Marcus has. So the seals on the end of the axles are not protected by anything, and stuff gets in there. Really kind of worried that we're going to be wiping out seals left and right unless we can get some kind of thing in there to protect it. Going to be making up some wheel paddles for it. He keeps getting stuck, and I can definitely see how wheel paddles that go over the axle help you walk through some of this mud. We don't have a lot of soupy gumbo mud like a lot of places do. A lot of this is somewhat hard packed bottom with some gooey stuff. But most of it's just water and you roll through it pretty easily. Tony keeps finding goopy slop holes and sending me pictures of this thing being stuck. It's only a matter of time before the drive line gives up. That is a lot of chunky monkeys inside of that differential. When I pulled it apart, we were draining it and we saw sparklies. We knew something had gone wrong. I was thinking bearings. This is a fresh rebuilt rear end. Shows how much torque goes on these rear ends. They're not designed from the factory to handle the abuse that they're going through. Somebody turned around and said they need to be shimmed correctly. Well, if you've ever rebuilt the rear end of a pickup truck, then you know how to set ring and pinion gears. These, on the other hand, I've not been able to find any kind of adjustable shim packs. I've so far pulled 10 of these rear ends apart, and I've spec'd out all the shims that came in each rear end. They're all the same size. So if anybody knows of an aftermarket shim pack where we can actually dial these things in and get the gear mesh to be exactly perfect, let me know down in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost a thing, and there's all kinds of content on this page. We've got rides and racing and all kinds of build stuff. I had to put this rear end, this is a spare rear end we're pulling parts out of, had to put it on the stove to get it heated up so we can get that special nut out of there. It's not uncommon to have to add heat. Good to have a stove in the shop. That way you just turn the burner on, throw the thing on it, and walk away. Come back a little while later. It's hot. It works. I use this stove for all kinds of stuff. The stove's done a lot of powder coating over the years. Yes, we also do powder coating. Custom fabrication, custom builds. This is pretty much a one-stop shop. You need it done, we'll figure out how to get it done. A lot of guys come over here and say they can't find anybody to build something. They can't find somebody to help them out. By the time they leave, they're golden. Got a lot of years of experience doing this stuff. I grew up, one grandfather was an engineer. The other grandfather had a fabrication shop. So I grew up learning how to design and build stuff. I was welding at the age of 9. Now, I'm not a welder, but I can definitely say my welds hold. They might look like dog shit, might smell like dog shit, but they hold. Not the best welder in the world, never claimed to be. I'm a fabricator, I build stuff. Welding is part of building stuff, so you kind of got to know how to weld, at least to get the stuff to stick together. So we got Pinion gear all apart. Now we're pulling Tony's differential apart. I was really surprised that seal came out in one piece in good shape. The rest of this thing comes apart really simply. That special tool is a game changer. But being that it's been apart recently, I wouldn't have imagined it was going to be too hard to get back apart. Everything's brand new. New bearings, new everything, except for the ring and pinion. Of course, that's from 1986. Can't really expect something that's over 30 years old to hold up to modern day abuse. Use gravity, some smack on there, and get the bearing to fall through. That one's a little bit tough. We'll get on there and just tap it a couple of times. Falls right out. Clamp it down in the vise. Pull it apart. This thing's smoked, so you don't have to be too nice about it. Block of aluminum and a hammer works wonders. Always have a softer material between the two pieces that are being hit. That way you don't screw up threads. Aluminum block works wonders. Go through. Now we're going to have to heat this bearing up because it doesn't fit over the shaft. See, turn around. We'll throw this one on the oven. Get it warmed up a little bit, so we can drop it right on the shaft, get the new pinion back together, back in the rear end, so we can put this thing together. It's huge. It takes up a lot of room. Can't have it down and in pieces in the shop very long. Once again, turn the burner on, grubby ass hands. Yes, the bearing's blue. It got hot, but see, it falls right on there. A couple little tappas, and you're good. That on there, put the nut on. We are going to swap out the splines. The greasy one has angled splines, so that's got wear on it. This one doesn't have angled splines. It's a little bit tighter. Go with the stuff that looks better. It might be a little on the rusty side, but it's in a lot better shape than the other one. So we'll throw the other one on the shelf for a spare in an emergency. Other than that, he'll sit on the shelf, collect rust and dust, and be forgotten about. Get the pinion all back together. We can throw this thing all back together, get it back in the trike, and get it rolling again. Did we have differential fluid? Of course not. Why would we have differential fluid in a race shop? We work on race bikes. So, of course, got to go down to the store today and pick up some diff fluid. That way he can take it home. These things are weird. You got to kind of flip them on their side to fill up the differential, because differential's at such an angle, you'll never get enough fluid in it to lubricate anything. Turn around, get these pieces back in there. Once you get all the pieces in there and bolted in place, you doink over that little lock spot, just like we're doing here. That way that nut doesn't walk out on its own. Turn around, we'll knock the seal in using a bearing that fits over it nicely so that we don't screw the seal up. And we'll put a little metal ring back on it and the differentials together. Put this thing all back together. Get everything all situated. And we'll be done with it until he breaks it again. Now, he's been letting all kinds of people ride this trike. I've seen from quite a few different comments. People saying cut the tires, get rid of the spacers, and put steel spacers in. Now, I'm really kind of curious about the weight difference between the steel wheel extensions and the billet spacers. So when we get some extensions built, I'm going to put those things on a scale and we'll see what the weight difference is, because I'm really kind of curious. When we had Marcus's over here, old Big Bird, I took those things off and they were quite heavy. They're playing with 3/8 plate, 1/4 inch plate. It's not light. It's got to be strong. It's got to be heavy duty, or else stuff's going to bend. These guys are in the water. They're bouncing all over the place. I am really, really surprised they're not bending the snot out of their rear ends. Now, Marcus brought his Big Bird swing arm in. That thing was cracked in a whole bunch of places. That just goes to show that the abuse that these things go on, they've got to be built strong. His swing arm, the center support brace, is just a piece of plate that was welded in place. A couple slots on it so you could adjust where the rear shock mounted. Really, really flimsy. There's a video on the page of me fixing that. I ended up using a piece of 1-inch round bar in one of the gaps, and I welded the snot out of it, and it made it so much more stiff. Got rid of the flex for the rear shock. He should be good to go. I'm not really worried about him cracking or breaking that plate again. Little worried about the arms on the swing arm breaking now. Also had to fill in some rot spots and some weak spots that were letting water through. What we're doing here, these spacers, you can barely fit a skinny chrome 17 millimeter in there to get those lug nuts out. So I got a 1-inch drill bit. We're going to make the holes bigger. A little bit easier to get stuff off. Maybe we'll stop stripping lug nuts because we can't get in there all the way. Yeah, probably should have some 14 millimeter lug nuts on there, but we've got 17s floating all around the shop. These things all come with 17s. And the threads on these spacers are not universal. Really, really wish they were. But I am finding out that some spacers you get have one thread. You get another set of spacers, they've got a different thread. Kind of pisses me off, but I'm not the manufacturer, so I really can't say much about it except for, well, it's aggravating as fuck. Go to put something on, one lug nut fits, the other one doesn't. So then you're searching for matching lug nuts. Waste of time. Universal applications are always the bestest that you can get. Really wish people would keep that in mind when they build stuff. No, we're going to do it our own way so that people have to buy our parts. No, people are going to be less likely to buy your stuff because it's not universal. I am learning that with building all these custom stuff. The more universal and the easiest access to parts that you can get it, the more people want to buy. Have a great day, everybody.